All right, I want to start by talking about this first reading from Baruch. You know, the people are rejoicing because they've been delivered from this bondage or slavery in Babylon, and they get to go home finally. And God has wrought this great victory for them, and they're so excited. We hear a description of it in Psalm 126 today. They're like men dreaming. It's like incredible exaltation, euphoria, just completely ecstatic. You know, we just have to think about things that we've experienced in our life, or we've seen other people experience that kind of bear the merest resemblance to that. First thing that comes to my mind is championships in sports, whatever they might be, whether you're slapping the black thing on the ice or bouncing the ball and making it go through the round thing, throwing the oblong thing back and forth and bumping into people, or swinging a stick at that little ball and trying to make it go out there away from the guys with the cowhide strapped to their hand. Okay, any of those types of things that people like to do. Think about it, it is kind of funny. Imagine somebody coming down from Mars who doesn't know anything about planet Earth, and you get, oh man, you got to come to this basketball game. Basketball? Okay. And they're sitting there watching this thing like, all right, this is interesting. Let's try football, baseball, hockey. Anyway, sports. The incredible just exaltation of a triumph, and you get the Stanley Cup, or you win the World Series, or the bowl that's super, or whatever. And you're so excited. Baseball, you know. Baseball takes a long time, first of all. The whole dang thing takes a long time because you got a 7-game series, the World Series, and if it goes to the 7th game, it's not like a one and done like the Super Bowl. One game, it's over. It's like this long, protracted series. And but there's nothing quite like the tension and suspense of baseball, though. It's unrelenting when the pressure starts to build, and it's a tie ball game, and anything can happen in a split second that could alter the course of this game. Somebody could hit a home run. You just never know what's going to happen. And people are just like, they have so much at stake, you know, they're emotionally so invested in their team. And you see them, the players are just like leaning on that little wall, chewing, spitting stuff, you know, watching, and they seem kind of bored, you know, not bored, but, you know, they don't seem like stressed out at all, but they really are on the inside. That's why they got to chew all that stuff and spit all that stuff, because they're just like trying to deal with the tension, okay? And you just look in amazement at that guy when the tension's so thick, you can cut it with a knife in that ballpark, and you can't believe that guy goes out there to the plate. You know, everything, so much is riding on the swing of that stick to try to hit that little white thing. I just love it. And you see the people in stands, you know, they can barely stand the tension, the suspense. It's like agony. And that's why they always cover their face. You notice that? You know, they're always like, they can't help themselves. It's just funny. You know, it's like somehow that's comforting to them. It helps them handle or cope with the stress. They're like watching the proceedings. So, yeah, when somebody finally gets a hit, bloops one over the shortstop, brings the guy in from third for the walk-off single. It's like a chemistry experiment or something, you know. I mean, it's suddenly just like there's an explosion. You know, they won the World Series. And you see the team was like sitting there. And then all of a sudden, they're like little kids, like little boys running out to the pitcher's mound, jumping on each other, tackling each other, rolling around, dogpiling. Everybody just like total exhilarating rush. Well, it kind of peters out. Everything peaks and then it poops, you know. You win the NBA championship, I don't care, do it 6 times. I don't want to hear anybody tell me LeBron James is the GOAT, all right? I don't even want to get into it. Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and that's the end of it, okay? Can I get an amen on that? Any Michael Jordan fans in here? Come on. So he wins in 91 after 7-year trying to build a championship team and just enduring this strife, this trial, and this mourning and misery. You hear, this robe of mourning and misery. He finally, that you hear in the book of Baruch, finally got to take it off and put on this robe of victory. And he's holding that thing, whatever it is, the trophy thing, and a famous picture of Michael Jordan. And he's sobbing like a baby. It's a very touching, endearing thing to see this guy who worked so hard, endured so much to get to that point. That was his goal. He finally achieved it, and he's got his head on that thing. I really like Michael Jordan. I love Michael Jordan. I wish we could be best friends, but yeah, he doesn't know I exist, but that's okay. Everybody wants to be like Mike and wants to know Michael Jordan. And so yeah, if you've seen, raise your hand if you've seen the mini-series, that documentary on ESPN a year and a half ago called The Last Dance, about the Bulls and about Michael Jordan. Raise your hand. Anybody see that? 2, 3, 4. Man, what's wrong with you people? That's messed up. You gotta see that. Trust me, you don't have to be a basketball fan to appreciate this series. I've heard a lot of people who aren't really basketball fans got bamboozled into watching it, and they really enjoyed it. It's inspiring. Michael Jordan is inspiring to me. But it begins and ends, with him at the end of his life. Not at the end of his life, but at this stage of his life, he's like, I guess he's got to be approaching 60 or whatever. He's like 60-ish, late 50s, early 60s now, and not quite sure. And he smoking a cigar in this palatial mansion, looking out over the ocean. And he's sitting there. And it's kind of sad a little bit. It's kind of a little bit, I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him a little bit. Because I don't know what's going through his mind, but it just kind of looks like, wow, all those championships. I mean, what the guy did. He maxed out a sport, okay? It's a very small, elite handful of athletes who've ever done that. He did everything you can do in the sport where you bounce the ball and make it go through the round thing, okay? He did it. Everything that you can do in that sport, steal the ball from other people, keep them from getting the ball to go through the round thing, you stop them from doing it. He does everything, whether it's assists, inside, outside, post up, everything. He is the man with the game of basketball. All the categories of skill, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. He wins the national championship in college for UNC. Hits the winning game, the winning shot to win the game, okay? He wins 2 Olympic gold medals and then does something so unbelievable. He wins 6 NBA championships. But it was the way he did it. He fought and fought and fought till he won his first one, and then he won it, 91, 92, 93. Now, to win the blasted things is extremely hard. A lot of the greatest basketball players never got to win the blasted thing. He finally won one. To repeat, only 4 teams have ever done that. To actually repeat, come back, keep your competitive edge, your passion, your fire, come back and do it again is extremely hard. Only 4 teams. Well, very few people ever three-peat, win 3 in a row. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls did it twice. So he did it 3 in a row. Then he took a break for a couple years. He came back and he did 3 more. Won 3 more. Like newly composed team, a lot of new members had brought it together again and won 3 more. It's just unbelievable what he did. He maxed it out. And here he is looking back on it with the cigar, in his mansion. Like the end result of all that high school kid who got cut from the varsity team his sophomore year and went home crying. And now, fast forward the tape, there he is with the cigar. He's done everything there is. And it's just, like St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians, to the Corinthians who really appreciated sport, they had big-time games in Corinth. And he's like, it's just a perishable wreath. A perishable wreath. People work so hard for those things. And there's a lot of wisdom. I noticed that in athletes who were sensational when they were doing their sport. And then when they're older, it's very interesting to hear them seasoned by life and looking back on it now on the other side. And they have real wisdom about life. And you hear them talk and you're like, wow, have they matured? And they have a whole new fresh perspective on all that they achieved. And they're kind of like, yeah, they like to regale you with stories and think about it, the old days. But, it's ultimately they know there's something more. There's something more. It didn't do it for them. All that achievement, maxing out a sport, and it didn't do it for them. Ultimately, a perishable wreath, St. Paul says. We want something more. Today is that something more. Because looking back at whatever we've done in this life, ultimately some earthly goal or challenge we're striving to achieve the prize and get past the bar exam or whatever it is, it's like, womp, womp, womp. Just ultimately it's unsatisfying, and we wind up in a watering hole in some bar with a beer gut, pulling our belt up over our beer gut. Years later, talking about the glory days, like that Bruce Springsteen song. Glory days, they'll pass you by, glory days. You heard that song? Talking about the guy, he could throw that speedball by you. Talking about some hero in high school who could throw a fastball 90 miles an hour, and no one could do that. He'd blow everybody away. He was the big hero for a time. Now he's got a beer gut, drinking beer at the bar. So St. Paul gets it. And today in this letter to the Philippians, you see the joy of Paul all over Philippians here. He knows what the prize is that he's struggling for. I strive for that prize. Only one receives the prize. Run this race that you may obtain it. He said in Corinthians, and here he says something similar. He's like, forget what lies behind. Forget it. I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. And if possible, that I may attain the resurrection from the dead. Like he knows that all those moments in life of glory and triumph, and we're like, yeah, I remember 15 years old, we won the Babe Ruth championship. I got to make the final out. Yeah, I'll tell you about it after Mass, about my base hit in the second inning. And just kidding. Yeah, so St. Paul, so filled with joy, and it mirrors these people, that's really an eschatological kind of vision of the end that we see in Baruch. Yeah, it's tied to the historical context there of coming back from Babylon, but ultimately it points ahead. Nothing will compare with that day. No Stanley Cup or World Series or Super Bowl championship ring and walking around will compare with that day. If we live our life striving for that goal, for that prize, and run that race, play this game, and follow Jesus Christ, and live for that moment when we cross into eternity, and we're going to be like men dreaming. We're just going to be like, oh my gosh. And it'll never fade away and become a perishable wreath. For eternity, we will celebrate that robe of victory.